All right, so let's dive into something that feels a little bit like we're in a futuristic political thriller, you know.
Ah,
AI, a new Trump presidency, and it seems like the whole world is kind of holding its breath to see what happens next.
Yeah, it is really fascinating to watch Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
a world that, often seemed at odds with Trump's policies now embracing his return.
It's like they're betting on him to shape the future of AI.
Yeah, it seems that way.
We're basing this deep dive today on an article from justsecurity.org called The AI Presidency.
Okay.
And it really does paint a picture of big tech kind of getting cozy with the incoming administration.
Right.
I mean, $1 million donations to Trump's inaugural fund from
Yeah.
Meta Amazon, even OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman.
Wow.
What do you make of that?
Well, if you look at it from a strategic standpoint, these donations could be a way to influence AI regulations under the new administration.
Right.
It's not just about goodwill. It's about securing a favorable regulatory environment for themselves.
So potentially less government oversight and more freedom for these companies to develop and deploy AI as they see fit.
Exactly. The article also highlights the creation of a new position, a White House AI and crypto czar, filled by David Sachs,
Oh, wow.
the former CEO of PayPal. And there's Jacob Hellberg from Palantir joining the State Department.
Interesting.
These appointments definitely signal a shift towards a more hands-off approach to AI regulation.
Which makes me wonder what happens to all the progress made under the Biden administration.
Yeah.
All those efforts to promote responsible AI with the executive orders, the Global AI Safety Summit, even the cautious dialogues they started with China.
Right.
Could all that be swept aside?
It's not that straightforward. Trump might have campaigned on repealing Biden's AI executive order,
Right.
but completely overhauling the existing AI framework across all those different government agencies is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah,
So maybe a more gradual shift rather than a complete 180.
that's more likely. We might see a streamlining of existing regulations, some deregulation in specific sectors, and possibly a greater reliance on self-regulation by the tech companies themselves.
And this brings us to the, let's say, competitive spirit between the U.S. and China.
Sure.
How does Trump's America First philosophy play into this whole global AI race?
Well, even during Trump's first term, we saw an escalation in tech tensions with China, particularly regarding those export controls on AI technology.
Right.
With his renewed focus on American dominance, I think we can expect this rivalry to become even more intense.
The article even points to the upcoming AI Summit for Action in Paris as a potential point of contention.
Yeah.
World leaders gathering to discuss AI cooperation while the U.S. and China are locked in this tech standoff.
yeah.
It's almost too dramatic.
It does make you wonder if meaningful global AI governance is even possible without addressing this fundamental rivalry between the two superpowers. And with those reports of China using open-source AI models for military purposes, the stakes just keep getting higher.
It's like they're playing a high-stakes game of chess, and every move could have global consequences. But it's not just about the U.S. and China, right? We also have Europe, who's been pushing for pretty strict AI regulations.
Yeah, while the U.S. and China are jostling for position, Europe is charting its own course in AI governance,
Right.
and it's definitely creating some friction.
Yeah.
The EU has been very vocal about their concerns regarding data privacy and ethical AI development, as we've seen with their AI Act and Digital Services Act. These regulations are quite different from the hands-off approach favored by Silicon Valley and, by extension, the Trump administration.
So we've got this potential clash of ideologies brewing with the EU pushing for tighter regulations and the U.S. leaning towards a more laissez-faire approach. And then there's that whole situation with Elon Musk's platform X facing those massive fines for not complying with the EU's Digital Services Act.
Oh, right.
And our own Vice President-elect J.D. Vance threatening to withhold NATO funding if the EU actually imposes those fines. That situation definitely throws fuel on the fire and sets the stage for a potential transatlantic tech war where economic interests and national pride collide. And while the U.S. and Europe are caught up in this back and forth, who do you think benefits?
Well, the article seems to suggest that China is watching all this unfold, maybe even seeing it as an opportunity. While the West is busy with internal conflicts, China is steadily pushing forward with their own vision for AI governance,
Right.
a vision rooted in state control and technological sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actively promoting it through initiatives like their Global AI Governance Initiative and those digital Silk Road investments.
So they're exporting their technology and their standards, especially to countries who are wary of what they call algorithmic colonization by the West.
And that's a key point.
Yeah.
While the U.S. might be focused on winning the technological race, China is playing the long game, They're cultivating influence and building alliances, potentially positioning themselves as a leader in global AI governance.
It makes you wonder if Trump's America First approach might unintentionally pave the way for a future where America alone struggles to keep up with a more globally connected and strategic China. But how does all of this high-level maneuvering actually impact the average person?
It might seem distant, but the reality is that AI development is going to impact nearly every aspect of our lives, from healthcare and education to transportation and national security. The rules of the road that are established now will determine whether these technologies are used for good or for ill.
Okay, so it's not just about who wins the AI race, but what kind of world we're building with this technology. It's about ensuring AI is used responsibly and ethically. And speaking of the real-world impacts of AI, let's bring things closer to home and talk about the Pentagon.
Ah, yes, the intersection of AI and national security. This is where we're seeing a real blurring of lines between Silicon Valley and the defense industry, and I think that trend is only going to accelerate under this new administration.
The article talks about the Pentagon undergoing a tech makeover with Trump favoring smaller, more agile tech companies like Anduril and Palantir. It's like a Silicon Valley invasion of the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, it is.
And leading the charge is Elon Musk, who, on top of his other ventures, is now head of the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency. His goal: to shake up those traditional tech procurement processes in the Pentagon, potentially opening the door for these new players and disrupting the established order.
Wow.
Musk's involvement is definitely interesting. Remember OpenAI, the organization he co-founded? They were initially against working with the military, citing ethical concerns. But now they've partnered with Anduril to develop AI-powered counter-drone systems. What do you make of that shift?
Well, it signifies a shift in how Silicon Valley views its role in national security. It used to be like a hard line, but now companies like OpenAI are willing to work with the defense industry,
Yeah.
which raises a whole host of questions about the future of warfare.
It's a different world than it was just a few years ago. All
Yeah.
these lines between innovation, national security, and ethical considerations are blurring.
Yeah,
It's hard to know what the long-term implications will be.
absolutely. And the potential consequences for global AI governance are massive.
Yeah.
You have the U.S. possibly stepping back from international collaboration.
Yeah.
Europe trying to set their own regulatory framework, and China strategically building its influence.
Right.
It's a very complicated landscape.
So where does this leave us? Are we headed towards a fragmented AI world where each region has its own rules? Or is there any chance of a global consensus emerging?
That's the big question, isn't it? The Just Security article argues that simply having the best technology won't guarantee leadership in the AI race.
Right.
The Trump administration is at a crossroads. They have to decide.
They've got a choice to make.
Yeah, do they prioritize international cooperation or risk going it alone?
Because if the U.S. isolates itself during such a transformative technological shift, the consequences could be pretty far-reaching. But let's step back for a moment and consider the broader implications of AI governance.
Okay.
It's not just about regulating the technology
Yeah,
itself.
no, it's about addressing the societal impacts as well.
Hmm.
We need to be thinking about potential issues like algorithmic bias, job displacement as AI takes over certain roles, and even the erosion of privacy in the face of increasingly sophisticated surveillance technology.
It feels like we're standing at the edge of something both incredibly exciting and potentially unsettling. The decisions made today will shape the world we pass on to future generations.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important for individuals to be aware and engaged. Shaping the future of AI isn't just up to governments and tech companies. We as citizens need to inform ourselves, ask critical questions, and demand accountability from those in power.
So it's about being more than just passive consumers of information scrolling through our social media feeds. We need to be active participants in this conversation.
Absolutely. There are several things you can do. First, stay informed. Read articles like the one we're discussing today, follow reliable sources on AI developments, and engage in thoughtful discussions with others.
So be a conscious consumer of information, basically.
Exactly. Second, support organizations that are working to ensure AI is developed and used responsibly. There are many nonprofits, research groups, and advocacy groups dedicated to this cause.
It's like putting your money where your mouth is, supporting the organizations that align with your values.
Precisely. And third, contact your elected officials. Let them know that AI governance is important to you, and encourage them to support policies that prioritize ethical considerations.
It's a reminder to those in power that they are accountable to the people they represent.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, we need to remember that the future of AI isn't predetermined.
Right.
It's a future we are actively shaping through our choices and actions.
I completely agree. And while the challenges are significant, I'm still optimistic. There's a growing global movement pushing for responsible AI development, one that transcends national borders and ideological differences.
It's a flicker of hope amidst all the uncertainty, a reminder that we're not helpless in the face of technological change. But realistically, not everyone shares that optimism. Some people believe AI is an existential threat to humanity, a force that could get out of control and lead to our downfall. How do we address those fears?
Well, those concerns are understandable and definitely deserve serious consideration. It's crucial to remember that AI is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. The key is to guide its development and use with human values and ethical principles.
It's like the saying, fire is a good servant, but a bad master. We need to harness the power of AI without becoming enslaved to it.
Precisely.
Right.
And that's where the concept of human-centered AI comes into play. It's about designing AI systems that enhance human capabilities, not replace us entirely. Right. Ensuring that AI serves humanity, not the other way around.
So it's not about robots taking over the world like in some science fiction movie, but about finding ways for humans and AI to coexist and collaborate for the benefit of society.
Exactly. And this requires us to fundamentally rethink our approach to AI. It's not just a technological challenge. It's a societal one that forces us to re-examine our values, our priorities, and our vision for the future.
It's almost like we're being asked to redefine what it means to be human in the age of intelligent machines. And in the context of our deep dive today, it's not just a philosophical thought experiment. It's a call to action.
It absolutely is. There's no easy answer. But one thing is clear. The future of AI is not something that's just going to happen to us. It's a future we can shape if we engage with it thoughtfully and intentionally.
And that brings us back to that central question posed by the Just Security article. Will it be America first in AI or America alone?
Yeah, it really suggests that in our pursuit of technological dominance, we risk isolating ourselves on the global stage.
And potentially ceding ground to rivals like China, who are actively, building partnerships and shaping the global AI landscape in a way that benefits them.
It's a classic paradox almost.
It really is.
By focusing solely on our own interests, we might actually end up undermining our ability to lead in the long run.
Like trying to win a team sport by only playing for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why strategic engagement and international cooperation are so crucial. We need to be actively involved in shaping those international norms and standards for AI, working with both allies and even rivals to find some common ground.
Because when you think about it, the challenges posed by AI go way beyond national borders. Climate change, global pandemics, even the potential for AI-driven conflict. These are all issues that demand collective solutions.
Right.
And that brings us to the heart of what makes this deep dive so important. It's not just about understanding the technical details of AI or the geopolitical maneuvering. It's about recognizing the profound impact AI will have on our lives, our societies, and our future as a species.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of this technological revolution and steering it towards a future where AI benefits all of humanity, not just a select few. Making sure AI is used to solve problems, not make them worse.
And that's where informed and engaged citizens come in. We need to ask those tough questions, hold those in power accountable, and hold ourselves to the highest ethical standards.
Because the future of AI isn't set in stone. It's a future we have the power to shape through our choices, our actions, and our willingness to engage in these crucial conversations.
Well said. The Just Security article concludes with this thought-provoking statement. Technological supremacy will not win the AI race. Unbridled protectionism or unilateralism risks exacerbating regulatory fragmentation, weakening transatlantic partnerships, and alienating the global South.
So the key question remains, will the Trump administration prioritize international cooperation, or will America first become America alone when it comes to this game-changing technology?
And what do you think this all means for the future of AI development and governance? What role will you play in shaping this new world? Those are questions worth pondering as you continue to explore this fascinating and constantly evolving field.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another thought-provoking exploration of the ideas shaping our world.